Hey guys, welcome to RIA Advisors Financial Housekeeping. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. I'm Danny Ratliff here with Richard Rosso. A lot of good information to get in today. We'll take care of a tad bit of housekeeping. So we are Clarity Financial, doing business as RIA Advisors, a registered investment advisor with the Securities Exchange Commission. So we're out of Houston, Texas. In fact, I am in our worldwide headquarters today. You can see us here in our conference room. We use this room for quite a bit of different activities. A lot of our lunch and learns, in-person events we will hold right here in office. So pivoted a little bit from our normal Candid Coffee setup. I'm here. You can probably see my little dude here in the background, James Wade. So Rich and I are really excited to share a lot of information with you. We know you guys could be doing anything this morning, and we're really thankful you're here with us. So we are going to keep this pretty informal in the sense that if you guys have questions, go to the Q&A, please. Don't hesitate to ask. We're going to try to get to everything. We typically try to spend right in an hour. We are cognizant of your time, and it is Saturday, right? Albeit rainy here in Houston. So, Rich, let's jump in. Like, what does financial independence mean for most people, or for you?
When you look at independence, everybody's got a different definition of it, right? I have a feeling that a lot of people that are sitting in on this morning, as opposed to doing something else fun, are already very financially independent. And it comes from when they were kids, Danny. It comes from what you call the money script. That are your patterns around savings and investment. So this is, a peace of mind that goes along, whether you have enough income to pay for your living expenses, you manage debts well. The unfortunate part, and Danny, we talked a little bit about this on the show yesterday, many mainstream financial rules are suspect. They're designed to keep you indebted and live up to these unrealistic standards and serve their agenda, not your family. And I think the people who have very strong financial security and independence understand that they're getting fed a load of crap when they listen to rules and ratios coming from Wall Street, coming from the banking institution. So the first thing is look in your money script, and we can help you do that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Rich. I mean, so often that these rules are designed for the company, not for the consumer. And we've got to make sure that, we're looking after each other and looking after ourselves and our financial well-being and our family's financial well-being. And that's, unfortunately, our interest is not always put first. And so we want to help you guys understand what that means, how you protect yourself, and just give you some different ways to think about these ideas, because I think it is really important.
It is.
So today's agenda, we're going to talk about just general debt, savings rules of 2023, steps to financial independence, and what do you do when life gets in the way? Yeah. We all know, and I tell people, and if you're a client on this, you can probably relate. I don't like printing out financial plans. And Rich, I think you may or may disagree here. And the reason I don't is because so often you do a financial plan, they get put in a drawer, and then they're never revisited. They collect dust. And what I really like to do is teach you how to use the software, get into it, and understand, because then what we do is when we get a curveball, when we get something that pops up, there's a fork in the road, life gets in the way, we're going to be able to determine, okay, what's the best, how do you make the best, most educated decision that has the least amount of impact, financially on you and your financial plan. And so life gets in the way frequently. We're going to give you some tips on, how to look and how do you address that.
So, Danny, one thing I'll tell you is, financial plan is, it's the walking dead of the industry, because it's just printed out and it's like a zombie. It goes on a shelf. Nobody looks at it. It rambles. It's a dead thing, right? The plan is not supposed to be dead. The plan is living, breathing like you are. It's a snapshot of where you are at the time, showing you how to get to a destination, and then you checking it along the way, because your life will change and your goals will change.
That's right.
So if you have someone that's really helping you with a financial plan, it's not the walking dead. It's a living, breathing entity that is a blueprint for your future. So, but there's a great book, Danny and I talk about it all the time, called Millionaire Next Door. It's one of the best books ever written. You have children, you have grandchildren, please buy them a copy of the book. I've been working with Sarah Fallow, Dr. Sarah Fallow. Her dad wrote the book Millionaire Next Door, and the firm Data Points. We have formed a partnership with Data Points. I'm very happy about this. And we have a bunch, and a lot of people have taken these tests, Danny. I can't believe how many people have taken the Wealth Potential Test. This is the Millionaire Next Door test. So if you go to REA Advisors, you click on Insights, and then you're going to see the financial guide. You provide your information, take the Wealth Potential Millionaire Next Door, and get your free. There's no obligation here, people. We're not trying to sell you anything. This is a really good awareness tool. And if you want, what I am going to do is once I see you take that test, I am going to send you next what we call the money script test, the Brad Klontz money script test. Like what are your insecurities about money? How did you learn about money? I learned a lot about myself through money scripts. So once you complete it, I will send that. That's your financial DNA. But for now, look at your wealth potential. I bet a lot of you score really high, but I would implore you, please pass this on to your loved ones, your younger kids, your teens, your high school kids, your grandchildren. See what they get on it. I'm really interested to see. So that's the first thing I think you have to do. Or anybody that's trying to create financial security, you need to know you have to start from the foundation, and that's awareness. Go ahead, Danny.
And this is really important. This is something that, just to give you guys perspective, Rich and I and everybody here at RIA Advisors, we're always looking for new tools and new things, especially as, life's evolving. We're getting more and more technology, more data, and more ways that we can help, understand our clients, and you can understand yourself better. And this is a really valuable tool. And it's one we actually just rolled out, like literally, a couple of weeks ago, even if that. I mean, so this is a pretty neat tool that you can utilize. And, as we find new ways that we can take advantage of these technologies, or just the psychology behind money, we're going to continue to do so. But yeah, go to riaadvisors.com, click on it. Rich, where do you have to go to find this?
First you got to go to riaadvisors.com. Up at the top, you're going to see Insights. You click on that, and then you're going to see the guides. It's going to say guides. By the way, we have some great financial guides for you as well. But you're going to see at the bottom this wealth potential test. You click in there, take it. Won't take you long. And once I see that you've taken it, I'll send you the next level of test. Right? I'm going to take you to the next level of test. And that is going to be your money script. And that's even more fascinating. But the wealth potential just shows how are you earmarked as the millionaire next door? What's that wealth potential number? Do you have the philosophy, the internal mindset, the spirit to be that? Or do your children or grandchildren do? So this is a great test. And again, no obligation. No one's going to call you. No one's selling your data. This is something we have aligned with Data Points to provide to you, because it's just ways for us to help you be educated, but not only you, again, members of your family.
Let's talk about the guardrails, Rich. We talked a little bit about it just when we opened up about, many guardrails are not necessarily created for us.
Yeah.
How do people need to view this?
Well, first of all, the annuities part, listen, we're not going to get too much into that right now. I just want to help you understand. You have got to focus on what's right for you. And you've got to focus on rules that fit right with you. Like that second one, which is to consider the primary residence as a place to reside, not an investment, right? We often look at the primary residence as an investment because it's more of a liability than an asset, right? When you have to track every improvement. What is really your cost basis? And what I find, no offense to any realtors that are sitting in on this or bankers, but they will say, well, you're looking for a house in this range? Danny, tell me if this has happened to you. You're looking for a house in this range, but your income indicates that you should be looking at a house in this range. No. I've got my own guardrails to follow. I don't want to be house poor, right? So you have to understand, even if you do consider your house an investment because that's where most of your wealth is, you got to change your mindset to think of it as almost an expense and a liability so that you stay grounded. Because most homes are going to grow by around 2%. And you know how many people bought homes during the pandemic, Danny? How many stories there are out there?
Man.
How that people are regretting that they did this. They ran out, they purchased these homes. They're down about 20%. This was bound to happen. So you don't want to make these decisions in haste. So I'm just saying, even if you say, well, my primary residence to me is an investment, I'm not trying to take that away from you. I'm trying to switch your mindset for you to think about it's an expense. If you told me this was a house that you were purchasing to create a passive income stream, and you were going to get depreciation and get and tax deductions or everything, then I would say absolutely. But this is your place to live, and you got to think reasonably about it. And I notice a lot of our clients, the wealthiest people we know, are not house poor. That's one of the basic rules that they follow for financial security. Not house poor.
Rich, how many times do you see people that get into it, especially first-time homeowners, or you're stepping up from that first house to your second maybe, and you just don't factor in all the additional expenses that come with the home? I mean, it's a really great, what you just mentioned. It's so true. I mean, we get in this house and you don't factor in the maintenance, the upkeep, the utilities, you got to do the yard, or what happens if something breaks. And this is something that's really difficult. You're also, we have a lot of clients who do have paid off homes, and that's great. We have a lot that use debt as a tool very wisely. And this is always one of those deals that's tough, right? So within a financial plan, we look at, what does that mean if you pay the home off? Is it truly an investment? Because I like the analogy you typically use will be, we're turning water into ice. And now to unwind that, it's a little more difficult, right? And so, usually if you're going to unwind something like that, it's not typically, this isn't necessarily an investment where you're going to reap the benefits of. Most people don't get in a house, buy it at a perfect time, and then wait for it to appreciate, sell, go rent, go start the process over, unless you're Lance Roberts, right? Which, I couldn't do. Michelle would kill me. And I don't think we make it through the moves and the upkeep. But it's an important part, right? The annuities should be planned, not sold. I mean, how many times have you had somebody come to you, Rich, where somebody comes and says, hey, my neighbor has this, or you guys work with so-and-so, they have this type of product, I need this. And we probably drive people nuts because we're like, I don't know there's a time we say, here you go, great. No, let's back up. Let's start with a plan. Let's understand where we're going, how we're going to do this. Is this right for you? And that's the beauty kind of operating the way we do. So number one, we talked about we're a registered investment advisor. As a fiduciary, we have a fiduciary duty in any and everything that we do to make sure that we're not just throwing stuff at you, right? We don't have a product. We don't have the allegiance to anybody but our clients, which is a good reason why when you're working with somebody, if you're working with somebody, all they have is a hammer, everything's a nail. Toolbox is pretty big. And so that's the nice part about this. But these are two really good points, Rich. I think that it's easy to get swayed into where the bigger, badder, nicer house is always nice, but it comes with bigger, badder expenses.
I always look at a big house. As soon as I look at a house that's too big, I go, oh my God. What is it?
What am I thinking? What am I doing?
What am I thinking for about the electric bill and the upkeep? I mean, I think of the upkeep first before I think about anything else. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend the money to do that.
In people's defense, I mean, I think that the last couple of years, real estate markets have been so hot. People are trying to move, because of the pandemic. They were able to move to different places. You were able, maybe if you're in a tiny place with multiple children, able to get out to the suburbs, afford something a little bit bigger. But people were making rash decisions because if you waited, you'd lose it, right? You snooze, you lose. And so right. I think that a lot of times people were making these decisions very quickly because they had to. I mean, I've told you guys this before. Any big decision, I like to slow play it. I'm like, okay, hold on. Let's back up. It helps you take the emotion out of it. We've even talked about this with spending money. Like, what's that number where, okay, is it more than $500? Is it more than $200? Is it $1,000? Where is it where you need to sit back? You need to wait a week and say, is this something I still want or need? Most of the time I find it's not. Or you need to talk to your partner and say, hey, and that way maybe you get a little feedback or, maybe a little bit of a big speed bump and saying, hey, no way, don't do that.
You got to. And that comes with the one other tenet that I think a lot of people, especially people I know that are sitting in on this, they have financial boundaries. They have not forgotten how to say no. You have more 18 to 25-year-olds living at home than any time since World War II. You have more multifamilies living together. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. If my daughter wanted to come back home, I would invite her with open arms. But what I'm saying is a lot of parents risk their retirement for their children. and lend money that they never get returned. And there's a point where, as financial planners, we have to tell a lot of our older clients, because their kids consistently ask for money, we have to be the bad guys. I'm happy to be the bad guy. I have broken up more marriages, well, pre-marriages. I've broken up more engagements. Now, I'm going to tell you how. Because I say, well, this person's got more money, that's more debt, you don't. This person wants to spend on more stuff, you don't. They're not financially aligned. So I have caused a lot of people to question things. I'm also the bad guy to a lot of kids, because I will tell their mom or dad, and if you're happy and want me to tell them, you cannot afford to give them this money because it's not a loan. Every time you say it's a loan, it's not a loan. You have to know, I don't know what your personal boundaries are, and say no and maintain those boundaries. You do not want to put your personal financial security in jeopardy. So you create these rules around debt control and savings, and you stick to them, right? Because once you have this excess of debt and limited ability to buffer against emergencies, then you can't do riskier things like a career change, something entrepreneurial. And Danny, the reason why we created this webinar today was why we might be going into recession. The Fed's pressing for people to lose their jobs. Are you prepared? Oh, and Susie Orman finally says, oh gosh, I think about 60% of people can't raise $500 for an emergency. Where has she been? So you, especially now, have to be prepared.
That's not new.
Well, it's new to her, obviously, in her bubble. So what I'm saying is, I think some of the best people that have financial security understand their boundaries and know when to say no. And they know how to buffer against things that could happen. Because just when you think it can't happen to you, it happens to you. And you've got to be prepared. So you got to create these rules.
Talk about personal boundaries, Rich, because this is always really important that people have these in place. Because I feel like, we have, people have business plans for their business. They have a mission statement. They have all of these great ideas and habits and things that they've created for it. But so many times people kind of just, I'm not going to say rudderless when it comes to personal finance, but they don't have hard rules in place. And look, I get it. Personal finance is difficult because there's the emotion tied to all of it, and there's so many different facets to it. But and having these rules and understanding if you're going to break them, and there's a really good reason to, can help you kind of really protect yourself. So talk about a little bit about these boundaries, like what that looks like, and maybe give an example, because I know everybody's gone through this at some point in time, right?
Everybody does. I mean, listen, people need money from time to time. You have relatives. You got to sway it almost like you're a bank. Like I wrote an article for the blog called Bank of Mom and Dad. And it's about 4 or 5 months ago. And it's about, where mortgage rates are, and moms and dads are providing the intrafamily loans for mortgages. And that's okay. If you have the cash to do it, you want to help your children, but you also have to make sure, you almost have to look at it like you're a bank. And how do you assess your child as a good credit risk, right? Otherwise, it's a gift. It's not a loan. You have to know your own financial situation. And, some parents, I think, are so proud, like, well, my kids need $5,000 and I don't want to make it sound like I don't have it. So I'm going to put myself in jeopardy for them. And they enable them. That's a tough decision, Danny, because we love our kids. We want to help them out no matter what. But you also have to look at, well, how did you get into this situation? Let me hear more about it. You have to think about like yourself as the banker in some way, because that might not be a loan. Most likely, I tell people, if you're going to give money to your children, you got to almost consider it a gift, or anybody in your family or a friend, because if they don't pay it back, you're going to ruin a relationship, right? So go into it thinking that it is a gift. And even though you set it up as a loan, you may not get paid back. You don't want to lose this entire relationship. Listen, we've seen families break up for this. I mean, stuff like $1,000. We've seen families just come apart on the animosity of money that's lent and never paid back. So, again, we give you some rules, I think, we have financial guardrails. Actually, if you go to Real Investment Advice, you go up to the top search area and you type in financial guardrails, you'll get all of our guardrails about debt and savings. I'm just giving this to you. Like Daniel just said, Mr. D, hey, I want my kids to see this. I want my son-in-law. Yes, you want young families just starting out to create these rules and to follow them so that they build wealth and protect themselves from any down cycle in the economy.
Well, that's a really good point. And I think that, by engaging them, having them listen to these types of conversations, understanding that, I think that so often we're so caught up with social media, all the different things, what your friends are doing, and you've got to take care of yourself. So, one thing I see a lot, Rich, and you've seen this too, I have seen people bankrupt their retirement based on giving to their kids because their kids get in a bind, or they need to, you know what, we have to pay for college. They're taking funds out of their IRA, and they didn't have the funds set aside appropriately. A lot of mistakes are made by doing so. And so this is really difficult. Another thing that's tough when it comes to like personal loans, we're just kind of elaborating on that subject. Do a contract, hold people accountable, have that conversation. And I like what you mentioned. Okay, well, you need this money. How did you get into this situation where you do? Let's talk about what could we do differently. How maybe should we look at things in the future differently? Those are important conversations because you know what? There's not enough mentors in this world. There's not enough people that actually care enough to sit down and say, "Hey guys, let's talk through this."
On Thursday,
that's the problem, and we can all probably do a better job at that. But
yeah, need help. Yes, I'll give you an example. On Thursday, I had a client call me. Listen, I got to give my daughter $10,000. I said, okay, well, you have it. I mean, you can do it. There's no problem. It's not going to affect your plan. It's not going to affect your plan. Can I ask you why? And she says, I didn't ask. I said, you didn't ask. So why don't you ask? Matter of fact, let's call her together because we'll get the wiring instructions or whatever she needs to get on.
Oh, you love being the bad guy, don't you?
I do. So I said, her name starts with a B. I said, Dad wants to give you the $10,000. I want to make sure, we send it to the right place. But Dad's got a question. Go ahead, Dad. Dad, what were you going to ask? Why? What happened? I don't want to talk about it. Oh, okay. You don't want to talk about it because Rich is on the phone. And she goes, no, I just don't want to say it. I need the money, and Dad, you have it, so I want it. I said, let me interject. I'm going to change my mind about thinking that you need this money because I think you should tell your dad, I don't need to be here, why you need it, and then let him decide whether or not it's worth it. And then she hung up on us. So, I mean, it's tough. Sometimes you need an unemotional outside party to understand. Well, I'm happy to give, like my daughter Haley, I'm happy to give you this money, Haley. Why do you need it? Go through that with me so I can understand what happened. I'm not here to judge her, right? You're not there to judge your children. You just want to understand what their thought process was, or was it did they get scammed? Did they get robbed? Did somebody make a mistake? I get it. But you got to know the reason, not just hand money over because you're dad and you're a bank or your mom and you want to give this money over. So it's tough. I'm not saying it's easy. Sometimes you need your financial advisor or even your partner. I know spouses, one spouse will be like, I'll ask. Sometimes your mom or dad, mom could be the bad guy and dad could be the good guy, and vice versa, right?
Yeah. You're a mortgage broker, you don't like this. If you're a real estate agent, you probably don't like it either. But this is prudent.
I want to tell you something. This is a tough one. I've had people follow this, and it's getting tougher to follow. But this mortgage debt, your primary residence mortgage, 2 times your gross salary. You all make $200,000 gross salary. That's your mortgage. I just didn't create this stuff. I've worked with people for 25 years that have given me some of their stuff, and I have created this. Okay. We want to make sure that we can pay this mortgage off at any time. So my people think, oh my God, that means we're going to have to save forever. Well, maybe. I mean, again, you don't want to be house poor. So student loan debt, 1 year's worth of total expense, tuition, room and board, and however way you map it out. So I've had clients that have followed this. First 2 years of school, they went to a community college. They had their children do that. Then children needed to take on debt And one of the children of the practice took on $20,000 in year 2. But we had to work, and I said, you have to work with him to see where this money is going. Because have you seen the studies, Danny, that show you when kids take out, when they take these out, what do they spend this money on? What do they take this loan money? Pizza, bars,
shrimp, pizza, beer. I mean, you name it, right?
So I have one client did a great thing, set up a separate account for this, a checking account for this money. And it was added on as a power of attorney. He could see all the money that was coming out and for why. That's what I think you need to do with your kids. And I know I sound like one of those helicopter parents, but you are trying to practice or help your children practice financial literacy. Listen, I did this. I took out 1 year's worth of loan when I first started my first college. And I'm not kidding. I think I spent like $500. You know, I was so into the school spirit, the t-shirt, the sweatshirt, the this, the that, you know what I mean? I mean, I didn't buy it on alcohol and stuff. It was all that school paraphernalia, right? The mugs, whatever it was. I mean, I totally lost my mind. All right. But my father was worse with money than I was, so I couldn't ask him. So I wound up self-managing it. So student loan debt, 1 year's worth. Personal unsecured debt, no more than 25% of your gross monthly income. Credit card debt, auto loan debt. Again, these debt guardrails, the most important thing about building wealth in the future is not what you make, it's what you keep, right? And I know that's an old cliche, but it makes sense. It's how much debt you're taking on and how you manage it.
That's the kicker. I mean, that's one thing my father always kind of beat into me was that, hey, you know, it's exactly that. How much can you save? And especially now, and you know, you can remember this, Rich, and especially this always resonated with me when I was young. My dad showed me this chart. Now, granted, it's not a chart that I would use today, but it was basically saying if you started putting funds aside. So, you know, here we're talking about this with your kids, your grandkids, especially when they're young, and we can certainly talk about, you know, where to put funds and how to, you know, the best accounts to do so. But showed a Roth IRA. At the time, it was probably like $2,000 you could put into it. And each year, if you did that from when you're 18 to 30 versus you starting and stopping and then starting at 30 all the way to 65, how much money you'd have. Now, I think they used an 8% interest on it, but that was just one thing that he showed me, like how much money you would have with how money works. Now, granted, I don't know that that's super realistic, but I think it was something that resonated with me when I was young that helped me because he was always, listen, save first, pay yourself first. You know, don't get into debt. You know, I saw friends in college who were like the credit card talking about unsecured debt. They would continuously get their limits raised and they'd get in trouble, right? Next thing you know, they went from owing $1,000 to $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000 to $5,000 and then so on and so forth. And, you know, paying it off even after that. You know, I called the credit card company and said, do not raise mine. I do not want it raised. Keep it set. And in fact, I think because I never used that card, they finally said, hey, that's enough. We're done with you. But I want to say that it was stuck at like $1,200 forever for like 20, 30 years. I mean, it's been a long time. So certainly something to think about, probably about 20 years. That there are ways that you can control this because they're going to continuously try to get you to spend more.
Well, the thing is, you're bringing up something very, very, very important. Ignore those seductive emails. And I didn't add that to this, okay? Where I get it all the time. You're due for a rate increase on your credit limit, right? From Chase, and I delete them.
But a lot of times they'll just do it, Rich. If you don't tell them not to,
no, I know.
Increase it.
Oh, I know. I called them, and they said, "Well, we increased your limit by X." I went, "Take it down." Because you got to remember, you got to watch your credit score, and that's based on credit management. So if you're breaching thresholds and you're spending up to that limit, or you have access to a certain limit of credit based on your income, that it could really wreck your score. So again, you know, it's not worth it. So again, we've seen this a lot, Danny, that people are moving on average in their careers or their jobs 6 times to make more money. In other words, this has been an employee's marketplace. So human capital is your economic value of your skills and your capacity to learn. Your lifetime earnings, who you are as an earnings machine, means more than anything else that you do. Okay? So I have just an element of what just 30 years of earnings, what you would earn, right? You are an earnings machine. You have to find ways to invest in you to hone your skills, move forward, maybe switch careers, change your job. And if I don't have a good financial buffer, what if I want to try this entrepreneurial thing? I did my business plan, I have an idea, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck because I've got a big mortgage and I've got all the amenities. I got the new car and how am I going to do it? So investing in yourself is the most important thing outside of anything else I can tell you. Be a lifelong learner, and you will be a lifelong earner. And we have seen that in this marketplace, right? I mean, the people that want to grow. I just had one of the children of the client go for like the Microsoft certification. So he's an expert in Excel and all of this stuff. He just got like a $20,000 raise because he took this upon himself. He did not ask his employer, but he knew they needed this help, and he went to his boss. And he said, listen, I can probably go somewhere else. He was this candid. And they said, well, hold on, this is great. Because he wanted to be in IT. He says he went and did all this learning on his own, Danny. 27 years old. Went and did all this learning on himself. And they came back and they gave him a mid-sized company. They just gave him a raise and a new job description because of what he did. Because we're starving for people that can do a skill today. We are hurting for skilled labor in so many ways. So remember, you are an earnings machine and you are an investment, and you have to keep that in mind.
Invest in yourself. That's probably the best place. We talk about putting funds aside in so many ways, but the human capital that you provide is exponential if you put back into yourself. And, we talk about health and wealth and how they're intertwined frequently. A big part of that is that, especially for long-term, for retirement. You have a good analogy too with, every time you eat a donut, you put $100 aside. I haven't seen that account yet, but I need to. But it's a good point, right? I mean, because that the better you eat, the more you take care of yourself, the better it's going to help you. But the same thing as you're working, putting back into it, that return is going to be great.
And if your current employer doesn't like it, you'll find someone who does in this market. Your children will. Your grandchildren will. They are starving for good people.
As business owners, we can say the same thing. And when we're interviewing somebody, we want, one conversation that we always have in the background is, okay, wow, I really like that they've attained these certifications. They're hungry to do more. They're always trying to learn.
Right.
That's a big part of it, right? We obviously want the credentials. We want the ethics, the morals. We want all these things behind that and the hard work and the experience. But that's a big part. Somebody who's willing to learn, willing to continue to put back into themselves, because that's just going to help our clients and what we do even more. And so, as business owners, we can share that with you guys. And I assume that any other business owners out there, or if you're working for somebody, they're looking for those same traits as well. So kind of talking about health and wealth, this is always interesting. And this is something that we talk about frequently in the sense of, all these reports and studies talking about, what people actually spend. And, this report from Health View Services sheds a lot of light on, overall expenditures with healthcare,
right?
How much the costs are rising associated with this. Like when we do a financial plan, we will typically section off healthcare expenses, especially if you're on Medicare or you have your own health plan, and we'll have it inflated at a different amount than what your normal inflation would be just for your regular expenses, because it is growing much quicker.
Right. No, it's true. And people who are retired or in retirement, they are still maybe not human capital machines, but they are designed to keep their body and their mind in the best shape possible. That could be going back to school. That could be learning a new skill, right? You have to make sure that you have an enjoyable retirement. So, when people come to us and they're going to retire and they go, listen, here's my budget. I'm going to cut out the gym. And I'm like, no, I don't want you to cut the gym. I want you to go to the gym. I don't want you to cut the gym, right? That's not an expense for me that you should cut, okay? Because you have to remain active. So health and wealth. So just because you might be older and you're not this human earnings capital machine, you are still, if you have good health, you're going to preserve that nest egg and use it for the things that are more enjoyable to you versus not. When we do financial plans, we look at inflation per goal. We keep track of healthcare inflation, Medicare cost inflation, and we include that in your overall plan. Build guardrails around your health. Even if you spend a little bit more on better grades of food, right? Less processed products. That's an investment in your body. I don't think that's throwing money away when you do things like that. I know food's expensive. I'm not arguing on that side of it. I know you got to watch your pennies, but
and we're seeing this inflation. So to give you guys a little bit of perspective, over the last several years, the average 65-year-old couple was spending $300,000, then it was $350,000. Now it's $400,000. We're just talking about over the last 4 or 5 years that these numbers have been jumping considerably. So at some point, I hope they can tame this and keep that down. But as people are living longer and longer, and once you reach 65, the odds of you reaching 80, 85, 90, they begin to increase substantially. And so you have to plan for these things. And I always think this is a little bit overwhelming, I think, for a lot of people. When you see it's like $400,000, I don't have $400,000 to spend on healthcare, but you got to factor in a lot of this has been, you're going to have other income coming in, Social Security.
This is over time. This is over time, and
Correct.
That's part of your plan. I mean, but we lump sum it to make a point. It's lump summed so that you can go, woo, I better respect that number. I don't want to spend any more than that, more than I have to.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
Listen, this is a side note, I saw William Shatner last weekend. It's the Sugarland, what is it, that convention center over there, the Discover, whatever it is, financial.
I don't know. Yeah.
Whatever, but
sure.
Okay. So I bought like the best seats for Amy and I. And it's like we had to watch a Star Trek II movie before we saw him. He comes out on stage, right? We were like 2 or 3 rows. I'm falling asleep. It's like 10 o'clock. He's out on stage. This dude's 93 years old. 93 years old. He's walking from one side of the stage to the other. He's talking. He's lucid. He's doing all these projects. I mean, I was floored that I had to send him a card. I had to send him a thank you card saying, listen, work with so many older Americans. You are just an example of someone who reinvented himself every decade. And you are always viable. It doesn't matter. 93 years old, you should have heard him, Danny. I was like, he's been walking for an hour back and forth and getting up and moving and talking and sharing memories. And, you see somebody at 93 years old doing stuff like this, you see the mark of good health and what it can mean for you later on. It was just an amazing example.
Well, that's also probably why he's 93.
Thanks, Smart Financial Center. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Yep, there you go.
And I can do my Janet Yellen impression. I can be in shape too, but I do love my donuts.
Hey,
that's
no more.
That's my radio Janet Yellen impression. I'm sorry. Okay, so now
it's not nearly as good on Saturday. Okay.
It's terrible on Saturday morning. That's the last thing you want to hear.
Well, it's not that good on Friday either. Let's be honest. But we love you for it. So.
Listen, we got to give you some ideas of some books. So yes, Stan goes, just get up and move. Yes.
Right.
One step at a time. It's so important as you get older. Get up and stay active. It's so important. Live long and prosper. Yeah. All right. So rich people manage their money well. Poor people mismanage their money well. Part of that, I will tell you, is money script. And that's why I wanted to work with Sarah to get this on our website. So this is the book called Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Mastering the Inner Game of Wealth. One of my favorite books.
Great books. I think everybody needs to read. You need to pour into yourself, kind of increase that human capital, understanding, what works well for you. Look, just because something works well for one person doesn't mean it's going to work well for you. But what I find with any of these books, you can gain some valuable bits of information. Another thing, I don't know if, Rich, you ever do this. Michelle gets mad at me. If you saw my office at home, I've got so many books. There's an app, though. It's called Blinkist. I drive in the car quite a bit. And Blinkist will actually cut down and condense some of these. And it's an audio.
Yeah.
So if you're in the car, and usually, we're on the phone a lot of times in the car, but in the early morning, nobody wants to talk to you at 4 or 5 a.m. So I'll turn that audio app on, and you can gain a lot of really valuable information. The one thing I don't like about when I'm driving is I like to take notes, and that doesn't work out too well. But I don't recommend that. But the app is pretty cool.
Well, that's what you got. That's what you got James's for. Keep him in the back seat. He could be your annotator.
He left his homework sheet in my office. I'm a little disappointed here, buddy. I thought you were going to work on that. And he said, no, he's reading. All good.
So the thing is, to your point, yes, Blinkist is actually not a bad app at all. It'll take the highlights out of a lot of books and help you go through them. So the other thing also, Danny and I hate financial cliches and rules because they're not really designed for you. But the one that we love is pay yourself first. You have to prioritize your savings more above anything else. So I did a whole series of reports with Jacob Rascone over at ABC 13 here in Houston. I call Jacob my little bro. And we talked about the savings hierarchy. You can't save for retirement until you have an emergency reserve. You have to look at savings first, then work your budget. Force feed your savings, then adjust your cash flow. You also have to realize that there are risks you need to mitigate. That's what insurance is for. Okay, you got to put your ego aside. You have young children, you need life insurance. You just do. Okay, unless unless you're fortunate enough to have inherited some wealth and it's not a big deal, don't think it can't happen to you, right? Healthcare insurance, disability income insurance. Around November is when you get open enrollment from your employer. And I've seen people do not maximize these benefits. You've got to do that. Mitigating big disasters is one way to build financial security. Well, I'm paying these premiums. Yes, because if something happens, you will be financially ruined until there's a point you can self-insure. So tell your children, grandchildren, no, take that disability income insurance. Take that long-term care insurance. Okay, you could be disabled, even if it's short-term, and that can financially ruin you, right? So these are basic things that you have to do to build financial security and independence.
About ignoring mainstream debt to income rules. I think that, it depends on what you look at. They'll say, hey, no more than 35% debt to income with any of your credit, 28% for a home. Those numbers aren't designed for you. They're designed for the companies, right? They're trying to protect themselves, but they also want to take you up to that limit where they feel comfortable, and they may stretch you a little bit. And, the 2 times rule, 2 times earnings is really difficult, especially in this environment where we've seen home prices go up exponentially. Most people probably can't do that. But the issue is you start getting further than that, you become house poor pretty quickly.
But Danny, think about this. I've seen houses in some parts of Houston, not in bad parts of Houston, but they're small. Their houses, they're about $320,000, $330,000. I think you can do it. The point is, you may not be like the most optimum neighborhood. You might not be in the Heights or wherever it might be. It might not be 30,000 square feet. Maybe it's 1,400 square feet, right? You got to learn to adjust so that you're not house poor on that payment. It's so important.
And then, talk about, you mentioned bonds and stocks and bonds. How does that look? Where do you put funds? True diversification. Everybody wants to talk about mid-cap, large cap, mid-cap, small cap, international, emerging markets, just investing broadly amongst all of them. And I'm not sure that's necessarily the best thing to do because, look, instead of just reducing exposure, we think something's going to go down. You can also remove it. There's going to be areas that you're always going to want to stay in because you can't time everything, completely. But you have to be cautious with that. And then you have to be mindful of where you're putting these funds. Is it an HSA? Is it a Roth? Are you making that savings? We're an advocate for the emergency savings. And then, Rich and I have had something we call a financial vulnerability cushion. that we started talking about pre-pandemic that proved to be pretty timely. We didn't know the pandemic was coming, but we think we need to go above and beyond, and just the environment that we're in with lots of volatility, potentially, market's been expensive, the economy's been running on fumes, so to speak, and it's really been pushed up in so many, with monetary and fiscal policy. So we have to be cautious in fortifying your household.
You do. You have to be. You have to look at things you can control. I can control my risk on my portfolio, but there are a lot of things about financials I can control, like some of the rules we've went through today. I mean, look at what we go through every day, Danny. We meet with Lance every day. We go through all these different investments and the macro economy. And I don't think there's anybody better than Lance and Mike in our group that studies the macro. And not only that, we study individual stocks. We study cash flows. But there's never a guarantee. Every investment you make, no matter how much homework you do, is a leap of faith. So we have to be understanding of the fact that what's in our control and what isn't. And in our business, they almost make you feel like nothing is in your control. It's all Wall Street that should control it. We should do this and you shouldn't be involved. That's not true, right? We just spend more time doing this than you do. We take the emotions out of things. We follow rules, right? Sometimes we're a bit contrarian. Like we talk about that, everybody is talking about a recession. This would be the most broadcasted recession in history, which makes me wonder how long it's going to be prolonged by everybody talking about it. Because when we talk about it, it doesn't happen. I mean, it's just, I've never seen a recession come on cue like we're expecting it to. Yes, the Fed's going to continue to press doing things, but listen, we own bonds now. The treasuries are paying well. Stocks have rebounded a bit this year, but in our financial plans, we have built this front-loaded volatility factor based on where valuations are. Stocks are still not cheap. Somebody asked about gold in the chat.
Hang on, let's get the questions here in a minute. Let's go then.
Okay, so and then also human capital, right? Keep that up. Dan talked about, hey, I want I know his daughter's newly married, wonderful career ahead of her. She's going to be a human capital machine. Her husband is. They have to understand that and continue to up their game. This is information for you to share, or maybe there's a skill you've always wanted to learn. There are so many courses online from major universities. There's so many courses, even for free, Danny. I'm amazed by what's available to you from a learning perspective, either very affordable or free. So up your game. Even if you get Blinkist, you're up in your game. There are a lot of great books out there. I put out a list every year. And ignore ignore your neighbors. Let them live above their means. Don't give crap what they do. This is the millionaire next door. We don't care about what our neighbors buy. Set your boundaries, right? Do your own homework. A lot of people are going to say, well, I made all this money in crypto and I did all this. Then you never hear about the bad stuff. So avoid investment advice. And the worst investment advice that I have heard over in recent history is crypto. I have nothing wrong with crypto. I don't think there's anything wrong with crypto. I don't think there's anything wrong with blockchain. But talking about it as if it's the next biggest thing, and it's, that's when it starts to worry me. And many people have gone through financial ruin with this. And I can replace crypto with anything else, Danny, right? Speculation is speculation.
It can be a stock,
gambling is gambling. Tulips, it could be anything. Yes.
It's the old adage, right? You go to your mailbox, your neighbor tells you, oh, hey, what are you doing with you, man? Oh, I'm killing in stocks today, right? Oh, what are you in? And they tell you about the one stock that they've made, 100, 200%. They don't tell you about the ones that they've lost. And this is an issue, right? And so then we want to jump into something. And look, it's human nature. We want to jump into things when they're doing well. It's high, it's going to get higher. We don't typically like to take profits off the table. I'm just talking about generalizing people in general. And this is the masses, and studies show over and over again that the average return for a personal investor is extremely low, and it actually lags the indexes substantially because, look, we're typically, when things are bad, we're going to run we're going to get out of Dodge, right? We're leaving. It's a flight or fight, and most people will flight. because they say, listen, this is my livelihood. Oh my gosh, I'm going to have to work another 5 or 10 years, 15 years just to recoup this because we're way too aggressive. Or, that just becomes problematic. And then when things are really good, we don't ever want to get out because it's just going to get better. Oh, I'm not going to take anything off now. I'm going to wait. It's going to go up another 5%, 10%. And so, this goes back to setting some rules, understand when you need to head, get out, understanding when you need to maybe trim the garden, so to speak, take some of this stuff out of the portfolio, take some profits, but still be invested. There's other ways to do this. So, keep that in mind.
So yeah, we're running really late. So the one thing I want to say is diversification is important, but also diversification of accounts. You want pre-tax, Roth. You want to be able to draw from different buckets when the time retirement comes to control your tax bracket. I think that's, I don't know how many much more we have here because it's turned out to be longer than we anticipated.
This next point really quick, and we're going to kind of go through this. I don't want to make light of any of these. I think they're important. This is a very important one. Wall Street has taught us over the years that, hey, invest pre-tax, fill that 401k up as much as you can. Look, you're getting more options. We really think that this is where you need to diversify. You need to look at after-tax Roth accounts, Roth 401ks. Many 401ks are now allowing you to invest in a Roth. So you need to understand, talk to your tax advisor, talk with, think about long-term planning. We don't want to be stuck at 65 pulling everything from a 401k. We want to have that opportunity to pull from multiple sources to reduce income, keep Medicare premiums down. There's going to likely be higher taxes. Any questions on the debt limit?
Yeah, so Secure Act. The Secure Act, I wrote about the Secure Act on the blog. So if you look it up, there are a lot more generous options available for Roth that's coming, right? The companies do it. Step Roth, simple Roth. Your matching contribution in your 401k, it used to always be matched pre-tax, but it will now be matched Roth. You overfund a 529 for your son or daughter, and now there's money in there. You can roll some of that beginning in 2024 into a Roth for them. So as much as the government talks about hating Roth, boy, it's sure Roth friendly in the Secure Act. And Danny and Lance and I always talk about the reason why.
They need your money. They need it now.
J.G. Wentworth. They need your money now. So Roth isn't going away. No, and the Roth 401k is going to be subject to the same contribution rules, Dan, as your regular 401k. There's no unlimited. Roth conversions, you want to pull money out of your IRA into a Roth, you can take as much as you want. You want to take $500,000 out of your IRA and move it to Roth, the government will love you because it's all going to be ordinary for you, right?
Now, we typically want to be fairly strategic about it. We don't want to do everything all at once. We want to maybe do it over the next couple of years. We do think we have a window before taxes where we revert back to the old tax code in 2026. So there can be some a little bit of a window here potentially, especially with gridlock, up in Washington. So we talked about financial independence. What do you do? Oh, and one last thing on that point. The Roth 401k, I hear a lot of times people can't say, I make too much money, I can't put money in the Roth 401k. There are no income limitations on contributions to a Roth 401k. There are for a Roth IRA. So keep that in mind. Does not matter how much you make. You can always put money in that Roth 401k. Now, plans for financial independence. We've talked a lot about this. I do want to keep this moving because we are getting some questions, Rich. Preparing financial plan, I think that, you can create that financial vulnerability cushion. You can live well beneath your means. And have that financial plan that you can understand, exactly where things are going. That 4-letter word budget, it's become a lot easier. Many of these banks, many credit card institutions, Mint, financial institutions, they're providing ways for you to actually, it condenses this information for you. A old school pen and pad is great. And I think it becomes a lot more real when you do that. Most people won't. But yeah, I think that's important.
Does everybody see my budget book? It's Bart Simpson.
Well, why is it Bart Simpson?
Because I get angry when I do a budget, but I still want to do it. Look, he's got that bite me look, right?
Yeah.
I showed this on Fox the other day and they were cracking up. Okay, so I'm just telling you, you don't have to be so fancy with your budget. I've been doing this since I'm 11. Not with Bart, he wasn't around then. But I'm saying, just keep track of where your money's going. It doesn't take long to do it.
Comprehensive financial plan, not a loss leader. We see a lot of institutions major institutions that will do these plans that are designed to veer you into their product, whether that be an annuity, life insurance, whatever it may be. And look, a plan will expose those weaknesses and give you some ideas and some direction on what you should do. But that should not be the purpose of the plan. The plan should be so you get a very good understanding as far as what you need. And so make sure you're looking, we always think, obviously we're biased. Work with a fiduciary, work with somebody who's going to put your interests first and have a very good understanding about all the different facets of what you need to be doing. On top of those book ideas that you gave, Millionaire Next Door, Richest Man in Babylon, Mean Markets, and Wizard Brain. I think this is nice. How to Profit from the New Science of Irrationality. Great books, certainly good reads. So we talked about a fiduciary approach. Look, guys, we provide a ton of information. We do it because we love what we do. We want to make sure that we're getting information out to our clients and really educating any and everyone that wants to listen. Go to realinvestmentadvice.com, a conveyor belt of information. We have a weekly newsletter. We have a Monday. If you're a client, you should be getting a Monday client update. It tells you what we did, how we did it, condensed version of that newsletter as well. We do a daily market update, and then obviously the podcast and radio show on AM 700 here in Texas, or the Real Investment Show on YouTube, any other of those podcast outlets you can typically find it. Go to YouTube, subscribe. If you would like somebody from RIA Advisors to contact you and just kind of give you an idea as far as what we do, how we do it, or you say, hey, I have a question. We're always happy to help you. Go to realinvestmentadvice.com, ask a question as well. We do appreciate you guys joining us today. Let's get to some questions real quick. So debt ceiling. This is a big hot topic. And Rich, I'm going to take this one really quick. I just want to give you some perspective. How many times have we gone through debt ceiling?
It's a Trojan political horse. No one's going to default on the debt. It's ridiculous. The markets have absolutely ignored it.
We've done it 78 times.
Exactly. It's ridiculous. There's a lot of dysfunction. And in some ways, markets like dysfunction. I don't know if it's liking this level of dysfunction in government, but it does love gridlock. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think it's more political fodder and headline fodder than anything that when you're investing, you need to worry about.
Yeah, I agree. And just to give you guys perspective, we know the problem that this country has with debt. And it's not anything to take light of. We're still the cleanest dirty shirt or the best house in a bad neighborhood in many, many ways. But we're going to have a very difficult time with interest rates where they are, or if they increase, just making interest payments, right? They're going to have to continuously increase this debt ceiling to do so. So imagine if they default. What will happen then? Where do rates go? I can't envision an environment where they're going to allow that to happen. Not long term. You guys can remember when they shut down national parks. They did things a couple years ago. Look, they may do that in the future. That's not out of the question, but it'll be political fodder to try to get something done. Dan, great. Daniel with financial freedom. Spend less than you make. And then what does somebody do if you're now in a position and you haven't planned for retirement? So number one, we get a lot of people that come to us and say, hey, I'm 65, I'm about to retire, I need to do a plan. Okay, great. We can help you by all means. But we also hear people say, hey, I'm not quite there yet. I don't need to plan for anything. I absolutely disagree, because there's so many things that you guys can do right now that we can help you with, or maybe shed light on, or just give you one tidbit of information on how you can better prepare to get there. So we don't want you to walk into retirement and say, all right, let's flip the switch, let's go. We want to talk about, okay, what do you do right now? What do your enrollment benefits look like at work? Where are you taking advantage of everything that you can? Are you putting funds in the right places? We talked about, diversification of assets, extremely important. We want to make sure you put it where you have more flexibility in retirement and you're not pulling everything out of one bucket.
It's never too late to learn something new about your retirement, whether it's you've been paying into Social Security, how is the best way to take it for you and a spouse, Medicare structure, how do you plan so you don't mess up the decision and have to pay penalties? There's a lot of things that you can do to be a better planner, because you're going to live to create a plan, because you're going to live a long time in retirement. And maybe you have to work part-time. Listen, Danny knows my paradise job is Buc-ee's. I had to go
he's
work
never
at
working at Buc-ee's because he's never leaving doing this. So, Great
I can
dream,
still
Rich.
work-
I love
I can
that
still
you.
work at
I love that
Buc-ee's
you're a
on the.
dreamer.
I can work at Buc-ee's on the weekend. They have
No, you
weekends.
can't because we're busy doing this and working.
Oh, okay.
Good
What I'm
luck.
saying is that you're never to, work. You're going to see more people come back. I called it the great unretirement in a piece I wrote on the blog. You're going to see more people 67 plus coming back into the workforce. Some because they have to, but others because it keeps them out there and social and engaged. And they love doing it. So Anthony just said it, you are never beneath work. Work is such a healthy thing. I talk about my Dunkin' Donuts guy that I went through the drive-thru. I think he's about 80. And he's so good at selling me donuts. And I might even eat donuts. I mean, it's like, he doesn't do it because he has to. He does it because he wants to. No, you're never above work or any type of work. And when you're retired, it's very healthy. So you also have to keep that in mind. So
let's move on. Next question. So
I'm going to work for Dionysios. He owns 19 Dunkins. Man, Dunkin's my favorite place.
All right.
Coffee.
Awesome.
I love Dunkin's coffee. Dunkin' coffee. I never get the donut. I drive through and I cry every day. I want the donut.
All right. So, hey, guys. So ahead of a coming recession, what are the key debt expense areas to examine, take action? What are key investment actions that we can help with? So, number one, I think, we want to pay off debt. We want to start at the top, looking at, okay, are you itemizing deductions? Do you have anything that you can itemize with debt, right? That's typically your home equity. We have limitations now with this new law. You can only do up to $750,000, and then with interest. And then, we have the SALT deductions, which have disappeared. So we want to be cautious with that. We typically want to start at the highest debt. That's usually where we want to start paying that off very quickly. We typically will evaluate, give people a really good understanding as far as, what are the best actions? Where do you go from there? Investment questions. I think a big thing is make sure you have the emergency savings. Gold is not emergency savings. Gold can be an emergency, but we want something liquid, something you can use. Gold is that turning ice into water, and it can take time, and there's also going to be fees in between it. I don't mind gold, but I don't want you to put everything you have in gold.
Gold is not a bad.
We want.
Yeah, listen, Lance wrote a great piece about gold not too long ago. I think about last week or a week before. Look it up. Type in gold up in RA in Real Investment of Life. Gold is very strange on how it behaves. And it's most likely lack of confidence in central banks, not really inflation. And you'll go through long periods where gold underperforms. There's nothing wrong with holding gold, but there's an opportunity cost to holding it sometimes as well. So it's doing well. It's doing better this year so far. We'll see what happens. As long as the dollar is weaker, gold might work. It's people that put so much into gold. But this article Lance wrote really is one of his best on gold. So take a look at it.
Yep. And so make sure you have emergency funds, financial vulnerability cushion, and then, understand what's your time horizon, where stocks. I think that a lot of people make a big mistake. They say, look, I've got a couple years for retirement. And regardless of the economic conditions, they typically will invest extremely aggressive. And that's where we need to be cautious. But that may not always be the best case. And so my thought is, okay, what if you go up an additional 10%? Is that life changing? Probably not. But what if you lose 20, 30, 40%? Is that life changing? Absolutely. People are going to have to make big time changes for that. So keep that in mind. If you have more specific questions or you want us to elaborate more, don't hesitate to, in the survey, ask us for somebody to reach out. We'll certainly help that.
One thing I'll say too is, Danny, you brought up about the standard and itemized deductions. It's going to be very tough to itemize. And standard deduction is up dramatically this year. Tax brackets have widened as well. It's just really a challenge for people to take itemized today. Now, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to sunset what, Danny, at the end of 2025 or 26? I can't remember.
Correct.
2026?
No, 25.
25. So tax brackets will the 22, 24% brackets are going to, shrink. The SALT might come back with that, but I don't know how popular that is. Well, obviously, some people really do want SALT to come back. And Danny, mention what SALT is, and then we can move on. But there would be a possibility for that to come back with the sunset of the Tax Cuts and Jobs
Yeah,
Act.
so this is the ability to deduct your property taxes or your sales taxes. It's going to give you some flexibility with that, where a lot of places are no longer going to do it. So basically, sales tax, your municipal tax, the local taxes. So you want to be cautious because that may or may not come back. I know that there's been a lot of politicians that have been campaigning for that because a lot of their constituents, especially East Coast, West Coast, that are limited as far as the amount they can deduct. But standard deduction has increased substantially, so a lot more people are able to utilize that. So I don't know how this plays out, but if we do revert back to the old tax code, that'll go away. It'll all be deductible once again. So do we have a recommendation for a estate planning attorney? We do. It depends. We work with many different attorneys. We know a lot of different ones. We could certainly help you guys out. We also work with a service called Trust and Will, kind of similar to like a LegalZoom, but a little bit more intuitive, a little bit more hands-on approach, I believe, I think. You can go through the website, find Trust and Will on the website.
Easy to use.
Easy
to use. Trust and Will also give you on our website some really good guides on how to set things up. It's a great educational hub. So take a look at that. We also did a great Candid Coffee, Lunch and Learn with Doreen Mayu, Chris Masters on family limited partnerships, which you might want to Brent just put it up onto the YouTube channel. You might be really interested in just understanding the mechanics. If you own a big business that you're trying to pass on, or property or ranch, this is a perfect vehicle possibly for you. So take some time and take a look at that Lunch and Learn with Chris Masters.
We're going to take a couple more if we can do it. So should a young person looking to buy a home contribute to a Roth IRA first before saving for the down payment on the home and take a larger mortgage when the time comes?
Now, is this person trying to tell me that they're going to use the Roth as a way to pull money out? Because here's what's happening in the financial industry. You have a lot of advisors treating the Roth like a checking account because it goes in with after tax, and after tax can come out. No. As my grandma would say, no, right? We want to put money into the Roth. What I would say, maybe you could do a little bit of both, right? I can save my down payment, and I could use an online bank to do it. Great rates at online banks, FDIC insured, and contribute to my Roth. But what I don't want to do is use my Roth as the method for the down payment. I don't want to take that money out for the down payment. I don't want to use my Roth as my savings vehicle. I want my Roth to be a retirement savings account. I do not want it to be a place to temporarily place funds and then use them later, which it's being marketed as, Danny. We know this, right? We don't want that.
Be cautious with that. So, Stan, there's no maximum contribution limit for the 401k Roth. Is there? Nope. There is no. Well, there's a maximum contribution limit, but there's no income limitation. So if you make a certain amount, you're going to be unavailable. You cannot put into a Roth IRA. But for the 401k Roth, you can always put into it. You're going to be same limitations as you would if you're just the pre-tax. All right. Hey, I think we have addressed most of it. If we missed something, I apologize. Hey, go to realinvestmentadvice.com. Also, before this closes, go to the chat tab. Erica has left a lot of really good links for you. So if you want to, some of the information we've discussed, family limited partnership, Lunch and Learn replay, Brent put that out there. You can also register for our next webinar on February 11th. And we have the information for the Money Scripts link on the Real Investment Advice page. Go there. We really appreciate you guys joining us today. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys next time.